we hope to talk about the performance of Colombo Stock Exchange during the past 12 months and its latest developments and its plans for year 2018. And we have the most appropriate person, the most suitable person to talk about its performance joining us today. And he is none other than Chief Executive Officer of Colombo Stock Exchange, Mr. Rajeeva Bandaranaike. A very warm welcome to you.
Hello.
You're no stranger to us.
Yeah.
So we are on the 10th day of the year. So how has the first week been for Colombo Stock Exchange?
Well, Nisanga, the first week has been absolutely great, if I may say so.
It's very nice to hear.
Yes, the market opened on a very good note, really.
Great.
And if you really look at the first week of trading, the indices, both indices, the all-share price index and the S&P had a growth 2% and 5% respectively if you look at up to today. Even if you look at the volumes, we have been averaging better volumes than last year. We did about 950 million a day on average, but for the first 1 week, our average has topped 1 billion. Then on top of that, the other bit of good news is that foreigners have continued their investment into Sri Lanka, and just over the first 6 days of the year, we have seen a net inflow of 2.2 billion rupees, which is also, I think, quite significant. And to cap it all, we had 2 IPOs opening. So it's a kind of a dream start for the year.
Right. So you had 2 IPOs within the first week, but during the last year, the entire year, you just had 2 equity IPOs. So is this a deliberate measure to promote initial public offerings, and can we expect this trend to continue right throughout the year?
Well, I wish it was deliberate, but truthfully it was not. It was just, it so happened that the approvals came in December and the issues opened in December, and both were quite successful, oversubscribed, and we had both issues opening up in January. So it was not quite planned as a deliberate measure, but certainly it's a good signal that the corporate sector is reaching out to capital markets to raise capital. And if you look at the 2 companies, both companies are fairly established companies, one in the hotel sector and the other in the energy, the power sector. So I think there was potential in both companies, and that's why there was appetite for those IPOs, and those also oversubscribed as well.
Right. So let's also do a review on the performance of the stock market during the past 12 months. How have you progressed in year 2017? Yeah,
I think again 2017 we can term it as a kind of a turnaround year. Simply because the 2 previous years before that, 2015 and 2016, we had negative growth in the price indices, but that trend changed in 2017, and we ended up the year on a positive territory on both indices, the all-share and the S&P, which grew by 2%, and the S&P grew by about 5% to close the year. So to that extent, I think we moved from negative territory to positive territory, and we're hopeful that it will continue. Then in terms of volumes too, if you look at the daily average volume, it was around 750 million in 2016. So that increased by about 200 million a day to close at about 950 million a day. So both in terms of volume and indices, we saw an improvement in the market. The significant, I think, feature in the last year was the amount of foreign investment that came in. It was a record year. Actually, it was the highest on record for foreign inflows. We had 112 billion worth of purchases being made by foreigners, which is a record on any given year. And the net inflow was at 18 billion rupees, which is also quite significant. If you look at the 2 previous years, in 2015 there was in fact a net outflow of about 5 billion, and in 2016 we had a marginal inflow of about 300 million, as opposed to last year where we had 18 billion inflow. So to me, I think 2017 was some kind of a turnaround year for the market, and we are hoping that trend will continue. It has in the first week, so we are really hoping that it will continue.
Great. And you were talking about a massive foreign inflow coming into the market. However, we did not see many locals trading in the market. Why is this? Are they still having second thoughts to trade in, or Do they have a risk concern here, or have they not really identified the opportunities available in the market?
I think bit of both really. One is that they have really missed the opportunity, and foreigners have been the first movers in identifying the potential in the market. So they have got in at quite cheap prices, and to that extent I think locals are missing out if they don't get in. One of the main reasons why local investors may be keeping out of the market are interest rates, because when interest rates are at what it is today, I think locals generally tend to get into fixed income securities because it's a guaranteed form of returns, and you would find that both institutional and retail investors would prefer to get into fixed income securities, and that is what is happening. So whenever we have relatively high interest rates, you have the market, domestic investors shying away from the market, and I think we are seeing that phenomena. So it's those are the sort of factors that are really not encouraging domestic or the local investors to get in.
Right.
But foreigners, I think they have a different view to it. They compare Colombo with other markets, and they look at the price earnings of ours as against the others. So if you look at our PE, it's at about 10 times. Whereas regionally, if you look at other markets, it's much more expensive. So in comparison, these are cheaper market to get in. They have seen the opportunity, and I think they've got in.
Right, and even though we have about 750,000 accounts in CDF, we only have about 30,000 active. Accounts. Can we expect this situation to improve this year?
I think it will be tied up to the kind of, if we can have a large enough IPO that has an appetite that will attract a larger segment of retail investors. So we need to have some kind of trigger to have a large amount of domestic investors coming in. If you really go back, for example, when Dialog listed, with that Dialog issue, we had about 20,000 new investors who came into the market. So you need a large IPO of that size to really excite people, to get people involved into the market, I think. So that's the kind of volume that we're having out of any given month. We have about 30,000 active investors, but there's a base of about 150,000 people who trade actively, but it's about 30,000 who trade for any given month.
Right.
So those are the numbers really.
Right, and we also understand that a multi-currency board is to be introduced for locals and foreigners to trade in dollars. What do you hope to achieve through this?
Well, it's a platform that we are trying to create. Actually, we are currently working with the regulators for the necessary approvals. It's a platform that we are creating to enable companies that are incorporated outside Sri Lanka to make use of this trading platform to raise capital in dollars, and that will be open to foreigners and those who can invest in foreign currency. So on one hand, we are providing a platform for a foreign investor base to reach out to companies other than local companies. Then this platform will also provide an opportunity for local companies to also raise money, US dollars or in foreign capital, through that board by issuing both shares and debt to foreign investors. So it'll help our local companies, both listed and unlisted, as well as companies that are overseas.
Right, and also as we've had massive inflows of foreign investment coming in, what are the measures taken by CSE to sustain this? Because that is quite a difficult task. We've already attracted them. How can we sustain this foreign investment?
I think on one hand, we need to keep improving our infrastructure to enable foreigners to get in and get out in an easy manner, hassle-free manner. Secondly, I think we need to keep giving value to foreigners. We need to come up with good companies and companies that will offer value to foreigners. They are looking at return. So we need to keep giving value in order to attract more foreigners, and we are constantly engaging the stock exchange as well as the stockbroking community. They keep engaging foreign institutional investors from the destinations that really give us this investment, and keep constantly talking to them. And we in fact we showcase the companies. We take these listed companies across to those destinations. We showcase those companies and keep engaging and keeping the interest of the foreigners going.
Right, and are there any measures taken by the government to list state-owned enterprises?
Yes, the government has publicly in fact stated that they will be interested in initially bringing the non-strategic enterprises into the market. I think they have identified initially about 4 or 5 of such companies, and those will be brought to the market. I think that will create a fair bit of interest both domestically as well as among overseas investors, because those are fairly well-known companies and large in size, and which will add size and liquidity to the market.
Right, and last year's budget had a lot of plans for the small and medium enterprises. What are the measures taken by CSE to attract this segment? What is in store for SMEs?
Yes, we have done our bit to encourage the SME sector, and we are coming up with a separate board where SME sector companies can list. In fact, the rules have already been approved by the regulator, and I think within the next, it's lesser criteria. For example, companies that have a capital between 25 million and 100 million can list, and they have lesser requirements as continuing listing requirements as well. So making it easier for those companies to maintain a listing. It will be of course cheaper too. So we are providing this platform and this investor base to for SME companies to raise capital. So what we are trying to do is to complement the efforts by the banks and the private equity firms and angel investors, those who invest in SMEs, to complement and assist both the companies and those who are funding it to give additional platform for them to raise capital. It will also provide a platform for those investors who have already invested in SMEs to exit. So it's an exit mechanism for particularly private equity investors. So we are looking to work in partnership with private equity firms in particular to make this SME board a success.
Right. So finally, what are your plans for year 2018?
Well, I think 2 key issues that we have in the market is about improving liquidity and size in the market. So on one hand, as you pointed out earlier, we are looking to list more companies. We are engaged in the private sector very actively in trying to encourage those companies to come in and list. That will give us the kind of depth that we want in the market, more shares, more liquidity. On the other hand, we are hoping that we can get a few state-owned enterprises as well to come in and list. They are again giving the kind of size and volume that we want. And such companies will not only be attractive to the local investor community, but also to the foreign investor community. So on one hand, the funding part of it. On the other hand, we look to expand the investor base as well. We'd like to have a more retail participation. We are investing a lot of resources, time and effort in doing a lot of education programs for the local investors. We are maintaining 8 regional offices, providing access to retail investors. So a lot of work is being done to encourage the local retail investors to also get into the market. The other area is about new products. We have only a plain vanilla product as of now, that's shares, and we also have corporate debt, but we need to offer more other products for investors. Like for example, we are looking actively at introducing a real estate investment trust, which is called a REIT. And given the real estate boom that is in Sri Lanka currently, we are looking to see whether we can complement that again by introducing an instrument where investors can also take part and make use of the market to invest in real estate projects. So those are some of the products that we are looking at to introduce.
Great, and sounds great. So we wish you all the very best, and we hope to meet you at the end of the year and share your success story. So thank you very much for being with us. We wish you and CSE a wonderful year ahead.
Thank you very much.
Right, with that, it is time for us to wind up. We will see you next week. Until then, take care and good night.